Hello and welcome to another PuTTY Precision technical session. My name is Frank Witmer, and today I'm going to discuss the steps, procedures of starting up a new JACE 8000 out of the box. To start, let's cover the factory defaults. The JACE 8000 shipped out of the box is the same for some brands and different for others. To start, the JACE 8000 has two Ethernet ports. The primary port, LAN 1, is default at 192.168.1.140. For the Facility Explorer FX80, it's 192.168.1.149. The secondary LAN port is disabled, and the default subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. As for the platform credentials, remember in an 8000 in Niagara 4, you have the platform username and password as well as a passphrase. And as you see here, the Vicon brand username is Tritium, password is Niagara, and the passphrase is also Niagara. On the Webs brand, it's Honeywell as the username, password is Webs, Webs is the passphrase as well. For Facility Explorer, it's JCI with the password of Explorer and the passphrase as well at Explorer. So some of the tasks required when you take the JACE out of the box. The first and important one is to make sure that you take the micro SD card, if it's not already pre-installed for you, to take it out of its container and place it into the side of the JACE 8000. Make sure it's seated in there properly. Typically, if it's not installed or it's installed improperly, you have like 6 or 8 letter C's across the screen in shell mode. That's a good indicator that the card's missing or not inserted properly. So typically for startup, I like to use the shell mode to be able to watch what's going on. I like to see what's going on under the covers and make sure everything is starting up properly. So to do that, you're going to use a USB micro A cable, which is going to connect to the JACE on the micro USB port shown here on this slide. So you're going to be connecting to that. And then with Hyperterminal or PuTTY, you're going to be setting your connection, your configuration to be 115,200 is the baud rate, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, no parity, and no flow control. So once you have that set up, and you also would want to have a patch cable connected from your PC to the primary Ethernet port of the JACE. So when you get through the initial startup, you'll be able to connect with Workbench to be able to commission the JACE. When you apply the power to the JACE, you want to make sure that you don't take power away for at least 5 minutes or so. You really need to let it go through a complete startup, because during this time of the initial power up out of the box, it's setting up the file system. It's going through and putting the image in. If you were to lose power in the middle of that, you could potentially brick the JACE. So that's why I like using the PuTTY session to do the shell session to be able to monitor what is happening. Once, really, if you look at this screenshot here at the very bottom, once you see Niagara Daemons, the Niagara D starting, at that point, you should be able to go in with the Workbench and connect with platform. And once you get to this point, you're going to be connecting and doing the commissioning like you would, for the most part, just like any other JACE. You're going to connect to the JACE via platform, typically with secure, so it's going to be port 5011, and you're going to be choosing TLS, and then with the default IP address. So you'll be connecting like this is shown here. Then you're going to be confirming, or I should say accepting, your identity verification on the screen that pops up. And then from there, you can put in your default platform credentials to connect to platform. Once you hit OK on your authentication, it's going to force you to go through and change your passphrase. It's going to have you create a new platform username and password. and then it's going to remove the default platform username and password, and also give you the ability to add more platform users if you choose to. And from there, the JACE is ready to go for commissioning. So at this point, it's a standard commission. You're going to open Platform Administration, as I show here. You're going to select Commissioning, the Commissioning button, and there are a couple other ways you can get to it, but this is a straight way of doing it. And during that process, you're going to be installing your license file. You're going to be enabling your runtime profiles, and you're going to need the UX, the user experience, and the Workbench, the WB profiles need to be selected. If you select either one, they both get selected. Pretty straightforward. Then you get the choice of doing your station install. And at that point, I do suggest you do have the station to put in, because what it's going to do, it's going to look at that station and determine what modules need to get installed during the commissioning. And if you do this later, you'll have to then install those modules later that it depends on. Then it'll go through and select the core software automatically, so the distribution file installation will be done. You get the choice of TCP/IP configuration, so if you need to change your IP address settings different from what are in there, or you want to enable the secondary port, you have the opportunity to do it at that point. Once you're finished with all this, you're going to select Finish, and it'll go through and do all those things for you. And here's a slide of a few of those steps. Ultimately, what you want is you want to see the last screen completing commissioning. Commissioning complete, and then it's rebooting, and you don't want to remove any power until the platform is available again. But as I show here, you go through commissioning, and I have just the default checks that are already there. Does the enable runtime profile, the licensing, it'll look if it has internet connection, it'll look out at the internet for the matching license to the host ID of the JACE, and it'll let you bring that in. Then you have your station installation, which will then give you a list of the modules that are going to get installed and give you the chance to add more modules. If you know you're going to be adding something later that needs a particular module, you can select that module at this point. And then from there, you have your distribution file installation, and it'll list the software that's being installed, followed by, you'll actually get to see all of those files getting sent to the JACE, and then also where they get written to the JACE. And once that's done, your commissioning is complete and you're ready to move on and work with your station. Okay, now what I'd like to do is walk you through the actual startup of a live JACE 8000. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to go ahead, I've got my COM10 or PuTTY setup going. What I've got in there so that you can see what my settings are. I'm actually going in, as I mentioned before, it's 115.2, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, no parity, and no flow control. So we're ready to go, so we can go ahead and power up the controller, and we'll just watch it. This is cold out of the box. And we'll see as we go through here the various steps that it is taking. And again, you don't want to take power away while it's going through this process. And you'll see there its factory defaults are being restored. The default IP address, 192.168.1.140. As we said, this is actually a Vicon branded JACE. Here it's backing up network settings so we don't lose those. It's working with the zip file for the images. So we let this go through its paces a bit, and eventually we'll get to where we can go ahead and get started. Okay, now it's unpacking files to be installed. That's going to take a little bit to go through. I'll go through and install the core image for us as well. Still going through. And again, it's always a good idea when you're working with the JACE since it's so easy to get into shell mode on the 8000, is to just go ahead in the background and have this running so you get referred to it to watch what's going on. So you know when it's ready for the next step and whatever it is you're working with. I mean, whether you're doing station copies or you're using Software Manager, you can have this open and actually watch what's going on. So at this point, you'll see down there we have our login screen. So at that point, we could log into the platform from shell if we chose to, but we'll still wait for it to finish. What we're really looking for, as we were showing in the slides, was that it comes back and shows that the Niagara daemons have loaded, which we pretty much know at that point that we can access it. The other thing that's always helpful is one way to know if your ports are ready or not is to go through and do a ping. So what I'm going to do here, while that's going, I want to go ahead and tell it to ping the IP address. I like doing the -T so it does it continuously, and actually in this case that wasn't necessary. So the IP port is alive and we can get into it. And if you look down here, Niagara daemons are starting, so at this point we can go ahead and get our Workbench running. So if we go and we bring up the Workbench, let's see, bring that up. Actually, what I was going to do was just come in here and set that up so we can go into to working with that. Actually, I had the wrong Workbench there. This was one I was working with, the Icon Workplace N4. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to our 192.168.140. We'll go ahead and log in. Remember, this is a new JACE, so we got to go back to our, in this case, Tritium Niagara, since it is a Vicon JACE. It should come up and ask us to verify our identity as the next step. Oh, that came up on my other screen. So we have that. It came up, public key change detected, Niagara 4. And one of the things you'll see that we have our, tells us what we have for our SSL secure certificate, and it's actually expired, which all JACEs are. So another video coming up will be on doing a self-signed certificate to take care of this. And click OK on that or accept on that. And then it's going to be asking us to update the passphrase, the credentials for the platform, and just wait for that to come up. Okay, here we are. Change platform to false wizard. So first step is a passphrase. We're going to go ahead and do that. And then the next step will be to do the new username for the platform, because it's going to get rid of the default Tritium username, so we have to put a new one in there. So go ahead and do that. Hopefully I typed in the same. I did. Okay, so now it's going to remove the Tritium account. We say finish. Takes a few seconds for this to get through, and once done, we should be able to log into the platform and go into the platform administration. And from here, what we want to do is go through the commissioning process. So once the platform administration comes up, what we're going to do is go through and say, okay, let's do a commission. So I'm going to click on commissioning. And again, in the background during all this, we have PuTTY going on. So you can see what we had done. You'll see that it added a new user, removed the old Tritium user. So you can still watch in PuTTY or in shell what's happening with the JACE. Okay, so first step for the commissioning is to go through it. It has checkboxes for the different steps that you want to go through. And the required ones are grayed out because it's going to run them. You can't uncheck them. And then I just let the default ones go through. Licensing, you could go through here and say, hey, Do you want to install a new license? And I'll say sure, let's do it from the license database. So it'll go out to the internet and grab that. Then you set up the runtime profiles, and you always want to check WB and UX. So as long as you check one of the two, they both check. And if you have a station to transfer, and I made up a dummy station that had BACnet and NRIO networks on it. So I'll say go ahead and do that. Yeah, we want the JACE to always auto start and start after the install. So now what it's doing is it's going through and looking at the station, and it's trying to determine what additional modules are required to run this station, and then what dependencies there are on these modules, so that all the appropriate modules do get installed during this commissioning. So here it's going through and it's listing. It'll go through and tell you which ones that it would install, and we at this point would go through and say next, and it'll give us a list of the distribution files, the core software that needs to be installed as well. So we'll have to wait for a second as it's checking all that. And you can see under software, it has the checkbox showing which modules are being installed. Okay, so here it's showing all of the various distribution files, the core software that needs to be installed on this JACE. And I didn't mention it earlier, but I am working with 4.8.0.110. Hit next. Now is your opportunity if you want to change your IP addressing. If you're going to be using weather or emailing of alarms, you're going to want to set up your DNS servers to make sure that they can resolve the domain names to IP addresses when going out to get the weather, or to the post office box or post office server for emails. So at this point, you can add another platform user if you choose to. I'm just going to leave with the one. And here it's showing us that what of all the software is that's being installed. I mentioned we got BACnet in the station, so it's got the BACnet modules. It should have NRIO modules since I am installing that network as well. They're there. Plus all the other required modules are also there to be installed. No changes to TCP/IP. The license are going to add it, and then we are going to start the test station application. So we can go and finish from there. So at this point, it's going to go through and send all the files, or it's checking the files, and it's going to send them to the JACE, and then it will be written to the JACE as well. This process does take a couple minutes. As you can see, the modules are being sent now to the JACE, and again, if I wanted to, we could turn around and go look at we can see if anything's happening in PuTTY, which at this point, nothing is happening yet. It's when it starts writing is when we should start seeing the activity in shell for those. Okay, now you can see in here where the files are being written in shell. You can see everything that is happening and what's being cached and then written. And then in the commissioning wizard, you'll see the updates that the files were written. And all we need to do now is wait until it comes back and tells us that the commissioning is completed. It will also give us a warning that we want to make sure that we do not want to take power away from this JACE until it's completely done. Okay, so now all the modules are written, and now it's installing the operating system image. And it's just about ready to be complete. And there we go. Commissioning complete. Device is rebooting, and don't remove any power until the platform is available again. So we do want to wait until it comes back. So again, this is a good time to, one way to tell if it comes back is we could watch it from shell, or we could do our ping and see when it does come back. So if we do a ping on that, actually cancel that, do it again, but I like the -T, so it'll just keep going on and on and on until it's ready. And again, if I go back here and I pull up PuTTY, pull up the shell mode, we can watch everything that's happening while it's rebooting. So it gives us an opportunity to follow along with everything happening in the JACE. And then if we go back here, again, nothing happening here because of the fact that the commissioning itself is done. We're just waiting for the JACE to come back after the reboot. And as you can see here, we are getting replies now for the pings. So we're in good shape there. We can hit close. We can check our shell one more time just to see where we are. And okay, we're just about there. It's almost ready to go. Okay, so we are getting close to the reboot being done. Just keep an eye on here a little longer. So you can see we're now in the final stages of the reboot. So a few more seconds and we should be able to connect back up to the JACE. That's still working on it, and we're at the point now where it's looking at the module signature registry, and I believe it's going to be version 4.9 where it's going to require all modules to be signed. So all the vendors out there, all the brands know that they need to get all their modules in order with signature files, so that as far as the whole security thing, it can be verified that these are valid and appropriate modules being used in a JACE. And again, that'll be in release 4.9. Okay, so now we're coming down to the end of it, and we have our Niagara Daemon starting, and now we're starting the station. So now that it's doing that part of it, we can go ahead and log back into the JACE's platform. And since we're doing a secure connection, it does take a little longer than a non-secure connection. So now we are there. We can go back and check our application director and the station's starting. We could also go back to platform administration, and we can look at our versions of software that we have that is being used at this point. And we should be at 4.8.0.110, and the core software is the same. Everything looks good here, and we're ready to go. And once the station has started, and we'll see here changing the status from starting to running, then we're good to go and able to move forward from there. I'd like to thank you for your time in viewing this video. And if you do have any questions, I can be reached at fwitmer@PuTTYprecision.com, or you can always email our technical support email at tsupport@PuTTYprecision.com. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.